Okay, Mikdav Eliel. It's like this. This is really heavy. I mean, really, really heavy. This is very, very heavy. He says like this, that the ratzon of a person is his mahos. What a person desires, that's who he is. What you want, what you desire, that's your neshama and burning inside of you. Your soul is burning. I want these things. That's who the person is. So he says like this. Ki kamosha sefer Chaim Musa v'Chaim Bahos. There's this Chazal that says, Sefer Chaim v'Sefer Maisim v'Nuchim lefanecha. The book of life and the book of death are open before you. Before you? Who's talking about? Ben Adam. Hashem opens up the book of life and the book of death. But since it says it's open before you, we're talking about man while he's alive. If it's true that we're talking about man while he's alive, must be also the book of death is talking about when man while he's alive. That's what he wants to say. It's also lumdis. Yeah, that's what he says. He says, since the book of life that's open in front of you is talking about right now while you're alive, it must be the book of death is also talking about, open in front of you, is also talking about when you're alive. Now, which book of death could it be talking about while you're still alive? He wants to say that's a question of what you desire. A person is dead. If he desires dead things, it's like he's dead. He desires things that are not going to last forever. It's like he's dead. This is a person who desires. He doesn't desire life. That's the definition of life and death in terms of this world. What does it mean you're in the book of life or the book of death? Are you desiring things that make you alive, or are you desiring things that are going to leave you here? This exact matzav that you're in right now, your desires in this world for the spiritual or the physical, do not leave a person when he goes to the next world. I always say that a person thinks he's going to commit suicide and he's going to get out of it. The answer is you're the same guy when you're alive as when you're dead. The same guy you're going a little about. Who's going to the next world? You are. It's you. Now what happened? He brings this unbelievable raya here. I couldn't find the case exactly, but there's a famous Gemara in Brachos of two girls that are speaking. One of the Rabbanim hear the two girls speaking behind the mechitza. The girls want to know what's going on, and they're already dead, and they're talking to each other. One of the rabbis hears the girls speaking, and they're trying to figure out. They're in the middle level. They want to know what's going on. They're wondering what's the decree for this world. That one of the girls makes a comment that she's embarrassed about something, that she's wrapped in a carpet or this. So we learn from there that even these girls are dead. And they're talking as if they're alive, as if they're embarrassed that they're wrapped in this carpet. What are they like? Yeah, they're left, they're gone, they're already not in this world. And they're talking in the terms of this world. What's happening? Why are they talking in terms of the world? The answer is because if a person desires this world, even when he dies, he's still going to be thinking about this world, and he's still going to be driven by this world. He's going to bring other examples. And he brings examples in the opposite direction. He says that the Avos, it says there's a Chazal that says that Yirmiyahu had to wake up the Avos. Yirmiyahu, the Navi, had to wake up the Avos because the Avos were not aware of what was going on in this world. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov were not aware of what's going. Why? Because if a person has spiritual desires, he leaves the world completely. I said an example, a guy he leaves high school. You leave high school, that's it. Well, you hang around the parking lot? No. You graduated high school, now you go on. You go to good college, make new friends, new things. But the guy's not healthy. He's hanging around the parking lot. Hey, what's going on in the college? What's going on in high school? You start asking your friends, hey, what's going on over there? No, life moves on. You move on. That's a healthy position that a spiritual person, when he's involved in spirituality, so when he next to the next world, he goes on. Now listen to this. He wants to say, and therefore, when a person goes to the next world, and if he had desires in this world, he's still going to have those desires. And that's what's known as the Kafa Keli. Kafa Keli is a form of punishment where you get thrown from one end of the universe to the other end of the universe. It's a punishment. Why? Because the person still has that heat inside of himself, driving taivas for this world, but he's dead. And even though he's desiring this world, but there's no way to fulfill those taivas. So he has a drive for this world. So he's driving, he's trying to run after his taivas. And there's no way for him to fulfill him. He gets thrown back and forth. He goes to the Shemaim to the Ars. That's what the Chazal says. He wants to say that he's going to say something really heavy. He's going to say it's even something before Gehanim. You got to hear this. This is the stage. It's the stage before you get to hell, but Gehanim, before you get to purgatory. It's a stage before. Watch this. He says the Satan and the Yetzer Hara. Who Satan, who a Yetzer Hara, who a Malach HaMavis. The Satan, the accuser, and the Yetzer Hara, the physical drives that a person has, and the Malach HaMavis, the angel of death, are all one. Look what he says here. V'stam v'yetzahara v'katrig v'onish hainu hach. That's a Gemara in Baba Basra. The yetzahara v'makatreg and the accuser and the punishment are all one part of the same package. You got to hear this. Rav Chaim Volozhin says like this: Sha'onish shemayim v'chet hu echad. The onish, the punishment, and the sin are one and the same. What's happening? You're punished by your sin. Listen to this. Shekoach atuma shenotzir b'kera v'chet. The koach of tuma that comes out when a person sins, those kochos, that's the goof of the punishment. Ayadeh chet hu atzmo hakoach ma'onish esad adam. The drive, when a person does a sin, it creates a driving force of tuma, a impurity inside that person. And that tuma drives the person to do more sins. It's like an addictive behavior. He sins, he starts to get addicted to it. There becomes a force in him where he becomes addicted. And that addiction itself is the punishment. Because in the case, what's going to happen, the guy's going to leave this next world. He has all this tumor inside of himself. He's addicted to the physical world, and he's going to be driven to the physical world, and he's not going to be able to get his desires. So it's like a guy who's addicted, and he can't get the drug. And he wants to say like this, as Sifka Cecil says, and that's before Gehanim. He says, Halavai yizkeh chote leGehanim. Halavai a person would get to Gehanim. Because what's Gehanim? What's hell? I say the word hell, I don't know. There's another word for that in English? Purgatory. What's the level of purgatory? At least there, purgatory, a person only gets to that level when he has real charata. Your person can't get to the Gehanim until he has full remorse. Until the person says, yes, this is the wrong thing, I'm not going to do this thing, I do not desire this thing, I do not want this thing, only then can he get to Gehanim. But if before he has drives inside of himself, yes, no, maybe, I'm running after the thing, a person's all mixed up, that itself is like a guy who's addicted to something and he can't get the drug. That's a real suffering. And he brings a raya, listen to this raya, he brings a raya from Korach. It says that the Bnei Korach are saying, Moshe emes v'Torah so emes. Moshe emes v'Torah emes. That's what they're singing in Gehanim. So you see that only once they start to say that the Torah is true and what Moshe is saying is true, that's when they can get to Gehanim. But before that, they couldn't get to Gehanim. So he says there's only ways to get out of that. It's only through entropy. In other words, Mishakah, it's only get at a certain point, once the person, let's say the person does get to that, he leaves the world and he has these drives. So he says slowly a person can work on it, and even in the next world, in a certain sense, there's like a force of entropy, the thing starts to calm down. And when he realizes, listen, what I did was really wrong, I'm not supposed to be going after these things, I have to get rid of my desire. At that point, then he can go to Gehanim. Now, that's on the negative side. And the positive side, you got to hear this. It wasn't be late 5 minutes for lunch, believe me. On the positive side, he says, Aruach Amiti. There's a pasuk that says that those who love me will inherit Yesh. What is Yesh? Yesh means what there is. The answer is the person himself. When a person in this world runs after Torah, the mitzvahs, the Devar Kedusha, he actually inherits himself. He builds himself internally. When he goes to the next world, Adarabah, he will be totally and absolutely fulfilled. Because everything that he desired was internal. All these drives and these external drives, when a person starts to drive for something outside of himself. But as long as he's striving for internal things, spirituality, ruchnias, things of the seichel, when a person is right, exactly. So when he drives for those things, when he gets to the next world, he'll be fulfilled. Look what he says here. He wants to bring Ma'oz ruchnias hisha'esh, the etzem of spirituality. That was his ratzon. And he wants to bring a raya, im ein ani li mili. He wants to say that a man, if I'm not for myself, then who's for me? In other words, only I can work on myself, that in the way I get to the next world, I will have a self. You're actually building yourself right now here in this world. And he says not only that, if a person has drives for a side of himself, he's actually ruining what he already has. In other words, so it's also like a positive thing of striving for spirituality and building your internal self, building your internal world. But when you strive for the things outside, you actually makalkel that. You ruin that thing. So how do you have menuchas and nefesh if the guy's like, well, looking after his taivas, his things, and he's looking after this girl and looking after his money, and why the guy has a car? He actually ruins himself. His own menuchas and nefesh gets destroyed. How do you say menuchas and nefesh in English? His peace of mind. He destroys his own peace of mind. One last point. Oh, this is very important. And as an educator, He wants to say that if a person is not real, if he really still desires outside things, and he doesn't desire inside things, he will not be able to give over to anybody else. You can't tell anybody else, listen, sit and learn, it's the greatest thing in the world. It's mitok, it's the sweetest thing in the world, unless I really feel it. If I don't feel it, no one's going to hear it. It's, in other words, that mahu is the transfer. In order to be able to, it's a beautiful thing, right? It's not only that, you can only transfer over to another person what you actually have. Yeah. So if you don't have it, you can't give it over. So he's really saying a lot of gavoltic things here. So go back to the original point. The book of life and the book of death is not talking about, it's talking about right now. Do you desire life or you desire death? And that's what determines, you're going to determine your Rosh Hashanah and also determines your next world.